To some, Tipu Sultan is a hero, a revolutionary who fought against British imperialism with unmatched courage and unmatched conviction. To others, he is a zealot, a tyrant who oppressed Hindus and Christians, whose ambitions were less about freedom and more about domination. A complex man, a king, a warrior, a paradox. Who was he, really? And why does his name still spark fierce debates in India today? Tipu Sultan was born in 1751 in Devanahalli, near modern-day Bangalore. His father, Hyder Ali, was a remarkable man in his own right, a military commander who rose from humble origins to seize power and establish himself as the de facto ruler of the Kingdom of Mysore. Tipu grew up not in the luxury of palaces, but in the harsh discipline of military camps, surrounded by the smoke of gunpowder and the sound of swords clashing. The world Tipu inherited was a battlefield. The Marathas to the north, the Nizam of Hyderabad to the east, and the rising British East India Company to the south and west. Constant shifting alliances, betrayals, treaties inked in the morning and broken by dusk. Tipu learned early that survival meant strategy, and strategy required ruthlessness. But Tipu wasn't just a warlord. He was, in many ways, a modernist, a thinker, a man who believed in technology, in reform, in the possibility of strengthening his kingdom against the inevitable advance of European empire. He pioneered the use of iron-cased rockets, weapons so advanced that the British would later reverse engineer them and use them in the Napoleonic Wars. Tipu built roads. He minted new coins. He experimented with land reforms. He introduced a new calendar. He attempted to regulate interest rates. He kept meticulous records, ran a sophisticated bureaucracy, and was obsessed with military innovation. He corresponded with the French revolutionaries, even referred to himself as Citizen Tipu, and saw the upheaval in Europe as a kind of parallel struggle. To many, this makes him a visionary, a proto-nationalist, a symbol of resistance. But Tipu's reign was not without brutality. In regions like Coorg, Malabar, and Mangalore, his armies forcibly converted thousands of Hindus and Christians. Churches were burned, temples were desecrated, entire communities were uprooted. His defenders argue this was retaliation, that these were rebellious territories, allied with his enemies, and that Tipu's actions were military strategy, not religious ideology. But Tipu's own letters complicate that defense. In his communications, he often described himself as a Ghazi, a warrior for Islam. He invoked jihad, celebrated victories over non-Muslims in religious terms, and dreamed of an Islamic empire in southern India. At the same time, Tipu was a patron of Hindu temples within his core territory. He gave generous grants to the Sringeri Sharada Pitham after it was attacked by Maratha raiders. He employed Hindus in high positions within his administration. His chief minister, Purnaya, was a Brahmin. Was this hypocrisy? Pragmatism? A ruler torn between ideology and statecraft? To the British, Tipu Sultan was a convenient villain. The East India Company needed justification for conquest. They painted him as a savage, an oriental despot, a monster whose defeat would civilize the South. After his death in 1799, at the gates of his capital, Srirangapatna, British propaganda flooded home. Paintings of Tipu's death, fictionalized memoirs, lurid tales of cruelty and debauchery. The truth, of course, was more complex. Tipu died fighting, sword in hand, refusing to surrender. To his enemies, he was stubborn and fanatical. To his allies, he was courageous and loyal to the bitter end. To history, he remains both. Modern India struggles with Tipu. In some textbooks, he is celebrated as a freedom fighter. In others, he is downplayed or vilified. Political parties invoke him as a symbol of either secular resistance or Islamic oppression. His statues are raised, then removed. His name becomes a weapon wielded in the culture wars of today. But history deserves more than slogans. Tipu Sultan was a man shaped by war, by ambition, by faith, by fear. He lived in an age where compromise meant weakness and mercy could be fatal. He believed in science and rockets and alliances and also in jihad. He crushed enemies and protected allies. He burned churches and funded temples. He was a modernizer and a monarch, a bigot and a patron, a tyrant and a martyr. He was not a saint. He was not a devil. He was a king, and like all kings, he was both greater and more broken than we want him to be. Thank you for watching. If you found this illuminating, consider sharing it. In a world full of myths, sometimes the most radical thing we can do is face the past as it really was. Until next time, stay curious, stay honest.